Managing blood sugar shouldn't feel like a full-time job, yet many of us still deal with sudden spikes, afternoon crashes, and numbers that seem unpredictable no matter how carefully we eat. The surprising part is that most of these swings come from simple habits we don't even realize we're doing. Today we'll walk through 7 easy ways to lower blood sugar quickly, strategies you can use right away without extreme diets or complicated routines. And the first one works so consistently and so fast that many people are shocked they never learned it sooner.
Tip number 1. Take a 10-minute post-meal walk. One of the fastest ways to steady blood sugar after eating doesn't require supplements, special equipment, or long workouts. It's simply moving your body for about 10 minutes, ideally about 15 to 20 minutes after a meal. Because giving your body a little time to start digesting makes that movement far more effective at lowering the spike. What many of us do instead is finish eating, sit down, and stay still, even though a short movement window 15 to 20 minutes later can make a dramatic difference. In those moments, the body relies heavily on insulin to move sugar into our cells. And if we're even slightly insulin resistant, that process becomes slower and less efficient, leading to a sharper spike. But something interesting happens once our muscles finally start moving, even gently. Muscles don't wait for insulin. When they contract, they open their own pathways, GLUT4 transporters, that absorb glucose directly from the bloodstream. It's like flipping a switch. Instead of relying solely on insulin, we suddenly have millions of tiny glucose vacuums activated just by walking. The beauty of this tip is how little it takes. You don't need a brisk power walk or a long session. A slow stroll around the house, walking down a hallway, cleaning the kitchen, or even pacing during a phone call can shift the glucose curve. Many people are surprised to see their post-meal numbers drop by 20 to 30% simply because their muscles were asked to do a bit of work at the right time afterward. Where this becomes especially valuable is after lunch or dinner, when insulin resistance tends to be higher. Those times of day are when a 10-minute walk makes the biggest difference. And if walking outside isn't possible, even gentle marching in place still activates the large muscles in the legs and hips enough to help. This habit is simple, almost too simple, but the effect is immediate. When we let our muscles help at the right moment after eating, blood sugar rises more slowly, spikes are softened, and energy stays steadier throughout the afternoon and evening. A little well-timed movement after meals gives your body another way to clear glucose, using your muscles, not just insulin. And even a short walk can dramatically flatten post-meal spikes.
Tip number 2. Add vinegar before or after meals. Vinegar is one of those everyday ingredients that seems too ordinary to have a meaningful effect on blood sugar, yet its impact is surprisingly strong. When we take even a small amount, about a tablespoon, diluted in water or mixed into food, it slows the rate at which the stomach empties. That slower pace means carbohydrates enter the bloodstream more gradually, giving the body more time to respond. Instead of a sharp spike, the rise becomes a gentler slope. Another benefit of vinegar is how it improves insulin sensitivity. When insulin works better, glucose moves into the cells more efficiently, which helps steady blood sugar not just during the current meal, but often during the next one as well. This is why people who use vinegar regularly see smoother numbers over the course of the day. One thing many people get wrong is taking vinegar straight. It's harsh on teeth and the throat. The goal isn't intensity, the goal is consistency. Mixing it with water, adding it to a salad, drizzling it over vegetables, or even incorporating it into a simple marinade gives you the same physiological benefit without the burn. And it doesn't have to be apple cider vinegar specifically. Any vinegar with acetic acid, white, balsamic, red wine, rice, has similar effects. If you've ever felt unusually thirsty, warm, or sleepy after eating carbs, or if you tend to get brain fog an hour after meals, those are signs that your glucose may be rising too quickly. Vinegar helps smooth that response so your energy stays more stable. Another interesting insight is that when combined with the protein first or fiber first method, which we'll explore next, the effect becomes even more powerful. The two habits work together, slowing digestion and moderating glucose in a natural, effortless way. What makes this tip sustainable is how easy it is to apply. You don't have to change what you eat, just how you accompany it. A tablespoon of vinegar before or after a meal is a small adjustment with a surprisingly big payoff. By slowing digestion and improving insulin sensitivity, vinegar softens glucose spikes and keeps energy steadier, a tiny habit that can create a noticeable difference in daily blood sugar patterns.
Tip number 3. The protein first or fiber first method. One of the most powerful ways to control blood sugar isn't about removing foods, it's about changing the order in which we eat them. The way we sequence a meal can completely reshape the glucose response, even when the ingredients stay exactly the same. This is where the protein first or fiber first method becomes incredibly helpful. When we start a meal with protein or fiber, something important happens in the digestive system. The stomach empties more slowly, the intestines release hormones that naturally moderate glucose absorption, and the body sends a signal to release less insulin overall. In simple terms, we're creating a softer landing pad for the carbohydrates that come afterward. That's why eating vegetables before rice or taking a few bites of protein before moving to bread or pasta makes such a dramatic difference on a continuous glucose monitor. Many people are shocked when they experiment with this. The numbers drop sharply simply because the order changed. But the benefit isn't only physical, it's behavioral too. Starting with fiber or protein helps us feel satisfied earlier, which reduces the urge to overeat carbs later in the meal. It quietly shifts appetite in a way that supports steadier glucose levels without any feeling of restriction. Another interesting insight is how forgiving this method is. You don't have to perfectly separate foods or follow strict rules. Even eating a small portion of protein first, like a few bites of chicken, tofu, eggs, or beans, creates that protective effect. And for those who prefer plant-based meals, vegetables with natural fiber can serve the same role. The point is simply to prime the digestive system before the carbohydrates arrive. This technique becomes especially useful during social meals, celebrations, or days when we know we'll be eating higher carb foods. It gives us a way to enjoy the moment while still protecting our blood sugar. The order in which we eat shapes our glucose response. A few bites of protein or fiber before carbs can dramatically soften spikes and help us feel fuller, calmer, and more in control. Tip number 4. Drink water before meals. Sometimes the simplest habits are the ones we underestimate the most. Drinking a glass of water before meals is one of those quiet tools that supports blood sugar without feeling like any kind of intervention. But there's a clear connection between hydration and glucose control. When we're even slightly dehydrated, the concentration of glucose in the bloodstream becomes higher, making numbers appear elevated even when we haven't eaten much. The kidneys also have to work harder to filter excess glucose, which can lead to more frequent thirst, fatigue, or brain fog, all common signs of hydration slipping below ideal levels. A glass of water before meals helps in two ways. First, it supports the kidneys so they can clear glucose more efficiently. Second, it primes the digestive system and creates a gentle feeling of fullness that helps prevent overeating, especially at meals that include carbohydrates. Many people notice that drinking water beforehand naturally slows their pace of eating, which gives hormones like GLP-1 more time to communicate satiety. Interestingly, hydration also affects how sensitive our cells are to insulin. When the body is well hydrated, glucose enters cells more smoothly, reducing the strain on insulin and lowering the chances of big spikes. This is why people often see steadier numbers on days they stay consistently hydrated compared to days when they forget to drink. And the habit is simple. It doesn't require timing supplements, measuring portions, or changing what we eat. Just a small glass of water 5 to 10 minutes before eating, or even as we begin the meal, sets the stage for steadier digestion and better glucose handling.
A hydrated body manages glucose more easily. Drinking water before meals supports digestion, improves fullness signals, and helps the kidneys clear sugar more efficiently. Tip number 5. Pair carbs with fat or protein. There's a common misconception that the only way to manage blood sugar is to avoid carbohydrates altogether. But the real issue isn't the carbs themselves, it's how fast they enter the bloodstream. When carbohydrates are eaten alone, especially refined ones, they break down rapidly and create sharp spikes. But when carbs are paired with protein or healthy fats, the entire digestion process slows down, giving the body time to handle the glucose more steadily. Think about what happens when we eat bread by itself. It digests rapidly, raising glucose within minutes. But if the same bread is eaten with eggs, avocado, yogurt, cheese, fish, or even nuts, the rise becomes gentler. Protein and fat act like buffers. They delay stomach emptying, activate satiety hormones, and reduce the total insulin needed for the meal. This approach is incredibly flexible, which is why it works for so many people. You don't have to change your favorite foods, just pair them wisely. If you enjoy fruit, having it with a handful of nuts creates a softer glucose curve. If pasta's on the menu, adding salmon or chicken helps balance it. Another major benefit is how pairing carbs affects hunger. When the glucose rises smoother, energy stays more stable and cravings are less intense. Many people notice they snack less between meals once they start pairing foods this way because their body isn't falling into the quick rise, quick crash cycle. What's encouraging is how effortless this becomes with practice. After a few meals, the brain starts recognizing patterns, and we naturally start building balanced plates, not because of rules, but because of how stable and energized we feel afterward. Carbs aren't the enemy. Eating them with protein or healthy fat slows digestion, steadies energy, and prevents the rapid spikes that lead to cravings and crashes.
Tip number 6. The 30-second muscle activation routine. Most people assume that exercise must be long, sweaty, and structured to have any real effect on blood sugar. But the truth is almost the opposite. When it comes to glucose, it's not about how long you move, it's about when you move. And just like walking, this works best when we give our body 15 to 20 minutes after eating before activating the muscles. That's why a simple 30-second muscle activation routine can produce shockingly fast improvements. Here's the part that surprises nearly everyone. Your muscles can pull glucose out of your bloodstream without insulin as long as they are contracting. This happens through something called GLUT4 translocation. You don't need a workout, you don't need equipment, and you don't need a full routine. You just need a short burst of muscle activation once that 15 to 20-minute window has passed. Think of it as turning the key for your muscles so they start absorbing glucose immediately. The easiest way to do this is with a wall sit. You simply rest your back against the wall, lower your hips into a seated position, and hold for 20 or 30 seconds. Your quads and glutes, two of the largest muscles in the body, immediately turn on. And once they activate, they start pulling sugar from your bloodstream to use as energy. The effect begins almost instantly. For people who prefer to stay standing, calf raises work beautifully. Rising onto your toes and lowering back down repeatedly for a half a minute wakes up your lower legs and activates exactly the muscles that help with glucose clearance. Even gentle marching in place can achieve the same effect, especially for older adults or anyone with knee concerns. What matters is that the muscles contract with intention. Movement, no matter how small, signals your body to use the glucose circulating after a meal. A mistake many people make is assuming this tip is too easy to matter. But glucose monitors don't lie. Countless people see a noticeable difference, sometimes a reduction of 20 to 40% simply from adding a half-minute activation at the right time after a meal. Another mistake is doing it too early. Giving your body that 15 to 20-minute pause after eating makes this routine far more effective than jumping into it immediately. This habit is especially helpful in the evening, when many adults are more insulin resistant. If dinner often causes your biggest spike, A short wall sit or calf raise session may be one of the simplest fixes you ever add to your routine. 30 seconds of muscle activation turns your largest muscles into a glucose sink. It's easy, fast, and surprisingly effective at lowering post-meal spikes.
Tip number 7. Magnesium, especially glycinate. If your blood sugar rises easily, or if you deal with fatigue, muscle tension, restless sleep, or stubborn insulin resistance, magnesium might be the silent deficiency driving those issues. And the surprising part is that most adults, especially those with diabetes or prediabetes, are running low without realizing it. Magnesium is essential for more than 300 biochemical reactions, but one of its most important roles is regulating insulin sensitivity. When magnesium levels are low, insulin receptors don't work as efficiently. Glucose struggles to enter the cells, so it stays in the bloodstream longer. The body then produces more insulin in an attempt to compensate, which can lead to a cycle of spikes, cravings, and fatigue. Many people don't connect their symptoms to magnesium deficiency because the signs are subtle. Tighter muscles, nighttime cramps, difficulty relaxing, irritability, poor sleep, or feeling tired but wired. These aren't dramatic symptoms, but they whisper that your nervous system and muscles aren't getting what they need. And when both the muscles and the insulin receptors are stressed, blood sugar control becomes much harder. Magnesium glycinate is one of the best forms because it's gentle on the stomach and highly absorbable. Unlike magnesium oxide, which passes through the body quickly, glycinate enters the tissues more efficiently and supports calmness and sleep while stabilizing glucose. It's especially helpful at night. When we sleep better, cortisol stays steadier. Evening insulin resistance improves, and morning glucose often becomes easier to manage. Foods rich in magnesium, such as leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, almonds, and black beans, help, but it's difficult to reach optimal levels through diet alone, especially for older adults. Stress, caffeine, alcohol, and certain medications also deplete magnesium faster, which is why supplementation becomes helpful for many people. When magnesium levels are restored, people often notice more stable energy, fewer cravings, and smoother glucose responses after meals. It's not a magic fix, but it is one of the underrated tools for improving metabolic flexibility. Magnesium supports insulin sensitivity, nerve health, muscle relaxation, and sleep, which all play a major role in glucose control. Glycinate is one of the best forms and can make blood sugar more predictable throughout the day. Bonus tip: the 30-30 rule. No sitting after meals. There's another simple habit that quietly amplifies everything we've talked about so far, yet most people never think about it. It's something you can do as soon as you finish a meal, and the effect on blood sugar can be surprisingly strong. It's called the 30-30 rule, and it simply means avoiding long periods of sitting for the first 30 minutes after eating. What makes this so powerful is timing. In the period immediately after a meal, glucose begins rising quickly. If we sit immediately, our muscles stay quiet, and the body depends heavily on insulin to manage that rise. But when we stay lightly active, even just standing, pacing slowly, or moving around the house, our muscles begin helping almost instantly, pulling glucose from the bloodstream without requiring more insulin. You don't need to stay active the entire 30 minutes. All that matters is avoiding that long, still period early after eating. Many people find natural ways to do this without thinking: tidying the table, preparing something for the next day, making a phone call while standing, or simply moving from room to room. These small actions repeatedly activate muscles, and they add up. People who try this often notice smoother glucose curves, fewer energy crashes, and less evening sluggishness. It's gentle, effortless, and layers perfectly with the other habits, especially the post-meal walk and the 30-second muscle activation. Staying lightly active for the first 30 minutes after a meal gives your muscles time to assist your insulin, turning big spikes into smaller, smoother curves. Managing blood sugar doesn't have to feel overwhelming. When we focus on small, consistent habits, like walking after meals, eating in the right order, pairing carbs with protein, staying hydrated, activating muscles, or supporting minerals like magnesium, our numbers begin to move in the right direction almost naturally. These aren't extreme diets or strict routines. They're simple patterns that work with your body, not against it. Try adding 1 or 2 of these habits this week and notice how your energy, clarity, and glucose stability begin to shift. Your body responds quickly when we give it the right signals, and these signals are gentle, realistic, and sustainable for the long term. If you found this useful and want more simple habits that support healthy blood sugar, feel free to check out our other videos.